Hi and welcome to the channel Davo, where we talk about Italian real estate. This is Thanksgiving and there are many things to be grateful for. We're going to talk about a few of them while we talk about cost of living here in my neighborhood, basically my cost of living. And also I'm going to be giving a tip on if you like the Dave Ramsey Cash Envelope system but you don't like using cash. I'm going to show you what we're going to start doing and I think it's worth showing. So stick around for that. All right, you guys, that's right. I am here in my office on a green screen and we're gonna be using a whiteboard to describe our cost of living. Most of the videos we're gonna be talking about is connected to my house. We bought a house in 2014. My family's lived there since August in that year and we've lived here now 77 months. We've been rent-free and mortgage-free, and we're gonna talk about where the money went. Instead of putting money into rent every single month, where did it go? Do stick around to the end of the video. We will be talking about the cash envelope bone system that I was talking about that we're going to be doing for our budgeting. I hate using cash because I don't remember to write it down, but at the same time, when you use cards, you can get out of control. So seems like a really good option for tracking everything while minimizing the amount of time spent. So stick around. All right, first let's hop over and let's talk about utilities here in Lombardia or Lombardy and my neighborhood Castelraga-Vidardo. Okay, we're going to talk about utilities, right? Utilities. Gas, electric, water, garbage, internet, phone, and TV. All right, so these are the categories. I would even put HOA or those kind of fees into this category where I don't pay one, so I'm not going to talk about it. So utilities, what is it going to cost us in total? We'll put the total up at the top at the end. Okay, so we broke it down between these categories. We spent 51 in electricity, 102 in gas, 18 in water, 17 in garbage, 22 in internet, 43 in phone, and 20 in TV. There are ways that we could have saved money in this. For example, starting at the bottom, we have TV. We could spend just 9, or even if we had no TV, we could spend nothing, right? But here in Italy, you're obligated to pay 9 euros inside of your electrical bill in Lombardy anyway. I'm not sure if that's an Italian thing or a Lombardy thing. You pay it automatically no matter what, unless you can prove you don't have a TV in the house. But we actually spend more than 9 because we spend things on Netflix and Disney Plus periodically, but not all year round. So it comes to about 20. Now, phone and internet could be better. Actually, we've improved it. We have unlimited data on both of our phones and we spend 43 now, before it was 35. Internet, we have the same speed, but it was 50, now it's 22. So we're actually saving 20 euros since basically it changed a few months, 2 months ago. Garbage is paid annually, or you could split it up like 3 payments per year. The other ones are kind of split between electric is every 2 months, gas can be every 3 or 2 or 3 months depending on which group you're with, and water is also kind of a quarterly thing or even twice a year depending on when they feel like sending you a bill. This is really weird. I don't understand the water companies. We're going to show you exactly what it costs to have a car here in Lombardy. We didn't mention that the actual total cost of utilities is 273 euros for us. For our car, insurances, for us is about 50 euros for one car. Fuel, I would say we averaged about 50 this year. 2021 was super strange since we never traveled anywhere during multiple periods, but that could go up and down depending on your lifestyle. Registration, I'd say, is about 20, depending on the kilowatt of your car, the engine. And the checkup is 6, right? Because it's split 75 euros where we go, split between 24 months. So all in, we're at 126 for the car. Again, so if you live in a city, you probably won't have this expense. But if by chance you have any desire to spend any time in a rural area, then you're most likely going to need it because bus schedules aren't always consistent outside of larger cities. At this point, we are going to talk about food. We're going to talk about food as a family of 5, right? My family, we used to spend about 500 euros, and that's on everything you would buy at a grocery store, including diapers and other supplies. So 500 euros, we go to more economic stores, and so there you could spend more with a family of 5 if you go to Esselunga, Carrefour, the big brand name stores, the ones that usually offer you some kind of reward system. We find them more expensive. The next category that we're going to talk about is housing, and that's actually bringing us right into the main theme of this whole video, okay? Housing here if we were to perhaps rent, because many of you know that we bought a property on auction in 2014 in August, and we've lived here rent-free, mortgage-free, growing our 3 kids, raising our 3 kids, and enjoying life, right? Being free of the burden of thinking that we're going to lose the houses someday. And for those of you who think that, well, but you do pay property taxes here, we actually don't, because we reside in our property, and so the property is literally ours except for we have to maintain it. So it's more of an asset than any other location in the world. Our personal property has put money back in our pockets because for every dollar not spent in rent or a mortgage, we get to spend it in other ways. And so what we're going to do in the rest of this video is talk about where the money has gone or where it goes. So let's talk about it by looking at something online here for a second to understand the value or basically the cost of living for renting. Let's base it on renting. If we were not the type to buy real estate, but to actually just rent a property here in the neighborhood. To do that, we're going to look at this website again. Last video I talked about it, and if you haven't seen that, go back and check it out. Also, my house video, you can check that out by looking at the links in the corner and in the description. But we're going to look at my neighborhood. You can see I used this before to talk about values, and we saw this color-coded map saying Rome is more expensive than Lombardia. This is in Italian, but there's another one on idealista.it. Not positive they do rents, but I think so. Anyway, we're going to switch this back to rent so we can see Lombardia actually has a higher average rent cost between 14 and 15 euros per square meter. We're going to dive in a little bit deeper to Lombardia and look at my actual area. You see most of the high cost is actually 15.90, more than 15.90 per square meter in Milano. And we live just outside Milan, where it actually reaches between 6 and 8, as far as 7 and 8 regarding the averages. Most of it being in Lodi here, but I live outside of Lodi, inside of this neighborhood called Castiraga Vidardo. Castiraga Vidardo. We're going to see here automatically it talks about the value of real estate per square meter and the value of rent, which is affitto, per square meter. On average is about 7, and we're going to pop up on the board to talk about how it affects us and what we would have spent for the last 77 months if we decided to rent a place in this area. Now, we could have found a cheaper area or a more expensive area, but we're just going to stick with what we've been doing just to make it consistent. Okay, we're talking about rent at this point. Now, rent, we mentioned, was $4.80 to $9.60 per square meter in Castiraga Vidardo. Now, I don't think my property is necessarily anything. I would never have gone for the most expensive property to rent. I would look for a good deal with more value. And renting a place like mine specifically, they talked about the average being 7. I'd say our property is valued between 480 and 7 because it's in the historical center of the area. It's not very conservative regarding utilities and things like that, right? Those are the valuable things. So I would put it more in a mid-range. So we're going to look at 550 perhaps. Let's start there. And we're going to multiply it by the size of my property. My property is actually 120 plus 20 more for this extra room that we're in right now. And we're going to discuss the price here. So 480 times 140 is 672. 550 times 140 is 770. And 7 times 140 is 980. I think this closer between these two would be something I could easily get and have more options on what type of renter I have. I would say 650 to 700. 750 would be a range that if I decided to put mine on the market, I would do it. So I'm going to stick to the bottom end. I like to be a little bit of conservative on the numbers here. So on the rest of this stuff, we're going to use 650 as our baseline. Again, stick around to the end of the video to see that budgeting system that we're talking about, the cash envelope system without the cash. That'll be coming up at the end. Stick around a little bit longer, we'll get to it. So it's taking 650 euros per month for the last 77 months of living here. What does that equal? Well, it equals 50,050 euros that should be in our pockets if we hadn't spent it, right? If we had said, oh, well, we're spending rent, but we're actually not, we'll put it in our pocket, that's what it would have been. So what happened? Where did it go? Let's first consider what we could have done with 650 euros. I'm going to start with the S&P 500 index fund. If we had taken 650 euros every single month and bought a portion of one share of an index, because I actually looked it up, and in August of 2014, the value of the S&P 500 index was 1,961, and that would have given us like 0.33 shares. Okay, if we had that opportunity, we could have taken it. We'll see what would happen. The next month, September, they actually went up to 1,993, a little bit over, but 1,993. And so we would have been able to buy a little bit less, like 0.32 shares. And all in, for 77 months, we would have equaled about 20. It's actually 20.1487, right? So based on this number of 20.1487, multiplying it by the actual value on November 1st of 2020 being at 3,429. If we take those numbers and multiply them, the S&P 500 index, that would have given us 69,096 euros to date. So there is a situation, if we were saving our money and not paying rent, we could have had 69,096 euros investing it just in the S&P 500 index. Well, we didn't do that. That's not what we did. That's not what we did. We chose to do real estate. One more example. Most people just talk about 8% interest annually, or 6 or 10, and I'm going to stick with the 8% interest annually just because I think that's a fair number to consider. It's common to hear people speaking of that number. Let's see what this looks like with that number as opposed to the S&P. Was the S&P 8% or higher, lower? Let's find out. So an 8% interest rate, right? The idea is we'd take 8% of and invest 650 times 77 months, right? And what will it produce? Well, I had to put an initial 100 euros into the calculator, so there's that. There's a little bit of a head start, but it's not that significant. This number right here is actually a little bit more. Doing it in this apparently S&P 500 was not an 8%. It was slightly less. It was actually 73,537 euros for this 8% option. Okay. So those are two options we could have chosen instead of the path that we took. Now, what was the path we took? Seeing that buying real estate at a lower price had benefited us the first time, we decided to purchase another property. And I'll show you in a second what we did with that property. What we did was we bought an apartment on the top floor of a complex, and that was on auction for 34,500 euros. Now, what we did was we decided, well, let's leverage mortgage of 28,000 euros. And I think some of you are laughing, thinking, wow, that is the smallest mortgage I've ever heard of. Well, that's what we did. So technically, we only put 6,500 euros of our own cash initially, plus some for the taxation from the registration tax. Anyway, we'll see that in a second. So right now, just based on this winning bid, 6,500 was our own cash. 28,000 was our mortgage. But what we decided to do was split our house into two. We have now 2 properties, and these are both cash generating properties right now. To do that, we're in it a total of 38,000 euros. So 31,500 euros to split it and to deal with some other administrative stuff. This number could have been better, but there were some certain situations that happened that we weren't completely aware of. And so this got a little bit worse than the initial plan, but it was still quite beneficial. So what happens now is that with 38,000 euros total cash invested, we have 2 units that are each producing a positive cash flow. Okay? We're not here to talk about cash flow, but both properties do create positive cash flow right now. And so all of the rest of our calculation will not include our positive cash flow. It will just be, we'll just be talking about the value gained, okay? It looks like the total costs of our property are actually 66,000 euro in order to have 2 spaces, 33,000 each, including our mortgage and our total cash invested. Okay? And this is a literal situation. I mean, these are rounded numbers, obviously, but this is more or less to help people understand. Let's take a look at the value of real estate in Sant'Angelo Lodigiano in order to determine if we made a good decision splitting this property into 2. So let's look at this thing. So we see 464 euros per square meters up to 1,693. This property, let me describe it for a second, is definitely not on that luxury side. The exterior still needs to be refinished, but it is habitable inside. But the problem is we have to decide as a group to renovate the exterior, and not everybody is in agreement right now. So we have to wait for convincing everyone is worth doing. So I would say let's stick down to the very, very bottom, this 464 euros per square meter, just so we can see the worst case scenario of what the value of this property is and see how it stacks up with our I think it's over here actually, with our situation on the board. Okay, like I said, we split the property into 2. One of them is 90 and the other one is 110 square meters. If we take our 464 valuation and multiply it by 90 and 110, we get, first of all, 41,760 as the first one, and the second one being 51,040, which is a total of 92,800 euro. Okay, so this is the value of these 2 properties together. If you remember, we're trying to compare the situation that we're in or where the money went to what it could have been. So I don't know if you remember the numbers, but let's write them up on the board here for a second. Okay, the first number we need to consider is that 50,050 euros that should be in our pockets. 38,000 of it is cash invested into the properties, right? We understand that. Well, there's actually other cash we might have in our pockets. This is the idea. We actually did purchase another property, and I will tell more about that story in the future, but we're not going to consider right now, but we're just going to compare this number right here. We were talking about the S&P 500 number. The S&P 500 was 69,096 euros if we had chosen the S&P 500 path. You can see that the value created from investing and splitting this property, even at the lowest price of euros per square meter in that area, well defeats our by basically 70 or 23,000 euro more in value created. Okay, and the other option was 73,537 for an 8% rate of return. So obviously we're getting more than an 8% rate of return if we sell that in that first year. Return on investment in that first year. And even shorter, if you did that in like 2 weeks, your rate of return is ridiculous. Anyway, not the point. Being Thanksgiving, I have to say I'm very grateful that we had the opportunity to purchase this property. It hasn't been sunshine and rainbows all the time, but we have really good renters. Aside from that, our value has increased making this decision more than if we had made another decision. And who knows, we're fortunate that it has been this case, okay? Now I'm going to look for more opportunities like this example in order to repeat the process, and that's my plan moving forward. The real idea behind this video, we're talking about costs of living. If you can find a way to create a situation or think outside the box in order to keep more in your pocket, it gives you more power in order to invest in any way you see fit. If you like stocks more, do it. Maybe you're more confident that way. You're better at just like investing and holding out. I personally like real estate, so this is the path that we chose. So stick with your path and you're definitely going to succeed. You need to make that path clear from the very beginning. This is the point where we're going to talk about the budget tip that I wanted to share here at the end of the video. And to do so, we're going to hop on transferwise.com. This is transferwise.com, and if you don't have an account and you want to learn how to register, you just go to their website and click register right here, and you can fill out whether it's personal or business an account just by filling out your email, creating a password, and choosing your country of registration. You might know this TransferWise as the cheap, fast way to send money abroad. And if you aren't familiar with it and you do want to sign up, go ahead and click the links in the description. There's one for personal, one for business. It depends on what you're looking for. So it's designed for transferring money. So most people that don't ever go across the border probably never even consider it as an option. And maybe there are other solutions like this and I just don't know where they are. But this solution works really well for me and maybe other people like me that are between currencies, in that I can also use it as a budgeting tool. And I'll show you here right now. We're going to look inside my account to show you what I mean by that. There is this multi-currency account and you get a card that looks like this green one right here. I've got one. My wife and I, we're going to start using it when we make certain expenses. This is my TransferWise account. You can see some activity going on. Most of it's just transferring money into various locations to prepare for this video. We were talking about the costs of living. We talked about utilities, and then there's all that other stuff that I didn't talk about. And this is where I'm going to track all the other stuff, including groceries and auto. But utilities will most likely stay inside of our other bank accounts because it's automatically transferred most of the time. Inside of this, when we go to the grocery store, we will have a balance. And this is a balance I chose. It's a debit card, so it's a bank account, more or less. I have 500 euros sitting in this balance at any given moment. We take it to the store, we spend 10 euros, okay? Or maybe 50 euros. It doesn't really matter. But once a week, I'm going to come in here and look and see if that balance is at 500. And if it's not, I'm going to figure out why. So I'm going to look into the movements and say, okay, well, it's at 42.15. There's a withdrawal, right? That's the idea. I'm looking at the balances inside here and seeing a negative 42.15 to toilet paper, okay? And so, well, how does this make sense? We're talking about Dave Ramsey's envelope system. If you're not familiar with this system, it's like you put cash in an envelope and you take cash out and you spend that cash, and when the cash runs out of the envelope, you don't have any more money, you can't buy any more stuff, right? Well, I don't do well with cash, and I wanted a system that was digital for tracking things, and this is what it is. When I see that the balance is below 500, I'm going to go look at the movement and assign, and now I'm going to show you exactly how I'm going to assign it. Here you can open a jar. A jar is like an envelope, okay? It's like a savings account and inside of a big account, right? I've made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 6 of them with balances. Grocery envelope, auto, kids, entertainment, home. So you can name them whatever you want, however you'd like to categorize your budget. But when my family goes and buys 42 euros of toilet paper, I am going to go into my home envelope and I'm going to withdraw 42 euros and 15 cents to make up for the toilet paper spent out of that budget. And I'm going to now have my balance restored back to the point before the money was spent. Here you can see it's missing, it's up past my 500 limit, but you understand the idea. So all you have to do is you can start a balance in whatever currency inside your multi-currency account. You can just open a jar, name it the rainy day fund or saving for you know, this would be like a budget item. Man, it's capital budget for eating out. Bad spelling. And then you choose, I choose my currency of US euros because I'm spending money in this area. But now I can skip it or I can put money into it as I desire. And now you can see I have a new budget eating out over here on the side where I will hold money, and you can use this for saving money over time or use it as a monthly system in order to track your daily transactions instead of using cash. So that's what we're going to do. I hope someone finds this as a useful, interesting tool. If you already know a system like this, feel free to share it with me. I don't know about it, but TransferWise works for me really well. Thanks everyone. That's a long video and that's enough. So we'll see you next time.